FBI says it has stopped an alleged ISIS-inspired terror plot targeting the New York State Capitol, with federal authorities arresting a 35-year-old Albany woman accused of planning to use an explosive device to attack the Capitol and state senators. Jessica Bowie made her initial appearance in federal court after being charged with attempting to provide material support to ISIS, a designated foreign terrorist organization. According to the FBI, investigators believe the alleged plot had moved beyond online discussions and into active preparation. Federal authorities allege that Bowie has sworn allegiance to ISIS and wanted to carry out a deadly attack at the New York State Capitol before fleeing to Syria to join ISIS-linked fighters. The allegations have raised serious concerns because investigators say Bowie had allegedly conducted surveillance of the Capitol multiple times and had begun obtaining materials that could be used to construct an explosive device. Authorities say the investigation reached a critical point when Bowie took possession of what she believed was an explosive device supplied through an undercover operation. The FBI Albany Joint Terrorism Task Force arrested her as the investigation moved into what authorities describe as an advanced stage.
Ms. Bowie didn't just want to kill lawmakers, she wanted a complete disruption of our government. And after that, she planned to flee the country and one day come back to, quote, do more, such as New Year's Eve in Times Square, even stating she would come back to attack the White House and the president, but only after she bombed the state capitol.
According to the criminal complaint filed in federal courts, investigators believe Bowie became radicalized online after converting to Islam several years ago. Authorities allege that she subsequently created multiple social media accounts using an Islamic honorific name. Investigators also claim that several accounts connected to Bowie posted messages expressing support for terrorism. The FBI alleges that Bowie communicated with a confidential source who was posing as an ISIS facilitator. Those communications reportedly took place over several weeks and allegedly involved discussions about carrying out an attack, obtaining assistance with explosives, and eventually traveling to Syria. The most disturbing allegation concerns the target. According to the criminal complaint, Bowie allegedly wanted to attack the New York State Capitol while lawmakers were meeting. Investigators allege that she wanted to cause extensive damage to the building and kill senators inside. Authorities say she conducted surveillance of the Capitol on at least 5 occasions, allegedly attempting to study the location and identify opportunities to carry out the attack. The FBI says she also purchased materials that investigators believe could have been used to make an explosive device. The investigation then intensified as the confidential source allegedly continued communicating with Bowie, while presenting himself as an intermediary for ISIS. Authorities say the operation allowed investigators to monitor the alleged plans and ultimately intervene before an actual attack took place. FBI Albany Special Agent in Charge, Craig Tremaroli, said Bowie allegedly swore allegiance to ISIS in multiple audio recordings made in both English and Arabic.
Approximately 5 years ago, she converted to Islam, and within the last 4 to 6 months, we believe that radicalization turned to mobilization. She had a lot of social media profiles and was prolific online, espousing anti-American beliefs, and a lot of her accounts were closed due to violations of terms of service.
Investigators also cited alleged statements attributed to Bowie, expressing support for terrorism and praising the September 11 attacks. The allegations are particularly serious because federal prosecutors say the case was not simply about extremist statements posted online. Instead, investigators allege that there was a progression from radicalization and communication with an alleged ISIS facilitator to surveillance of a potential target, acquisition of bomb-making materials, and an attempt to obtain what Bowie believed was an explosive device. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed the arrest and praised investigators and law enforcement partners involved in the operation. Patel said the FBI had prevented another alleged terrorist attack and described the investigation as an example of authorities acting before a suspect could allegedly carry out an attack. He said investigators, intelligence teams, federal agencies, and local law enforcement had worked together to identify the alleged threat. The FBI director also claimed that hundreds of alleged attacks had already been disrupted by the Bureau during 2026. However, those broader figures were statements made by the FBI director and do not establish that every incident involved the same circumstances as the Bowie case. Federal prosecutors are now expected to pursue the material support charged against Bowie. The charge is serious, but it is important to stress that the allegations remain allegations. Bowie has been accused in a federal criminal complaint and has not been convicted. The case will therefore depend on evidence presented by prosecutors and the legal process that follows. Authorities are also continuing to examine Bowie's alleged communications, social media activity, surveillance of the Capitol, and preparations for the alleged attack. Investigators are expected to look closely at whether anyone else was involved, whether Bowie received assistance from additional individuals, and how far the alleged plans had progressed before her arrest. The case also highlights the continuing challenge facing American authorities in dealing with individuals who may become radicalized online and attempt to move from extremist rhetoric to real-world violence. In this case, investigators say the alleged threats involved a major government building and elected officials. The New York State Capitol is one of the most prominent government buildings in the state, making any alleged plan to attack it particularly serious. The allegation also demonstrates why counter-terrorism investigations frequently involve undercover operations and confidential sources. According to the FBI, investigators were able to monitor the alleged plots while preventing the suspects from obtaining a genuine functioning explosive device. That intervention, authorities say, allowed them to arrest Bowie before the alleged plan could become an actual attack. As the case moves through federal courts, prosecutors will have to prove the allegations beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense will have the opportunity to challenge the government's evidence and present its own case. For residents of Albany and New York states, the most significant issue is that authorities say the alleged attack was intercepted before anyone was killed or injured. The investigation continues, and federal authorities are now working to establish the full extent of the alleged plots, Bowie's communications, and whether there were any additional people connected to the case. What remains clear from the FBI's account is that authorities believe they intervened at a critical moment before an alleged plan targeting the New York State Capitol and lawmakers could turn into a deadly attack. For more international news reports, stay with us on First Next News. I'm Chidera Isom. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next reports.